The Art of Leadership Network.
Hey leaders, welcome to the Lead Culture Podcast. We're a part of the Art of Leadership Network. I'm your host, Jenni Catron, CEO of the Foresight Group, a company dedicated to helping leaders develop thriving teams. Each week, I'll be your guide as we explore practical strategies to equip you with the tools you need to lead with clarity, confidence, and build unstoppable momentum in your organization. My mission is to be your trusted coach, empowering you to master the art of self-leadership so you'll learn to lead yourself well so you can lead others better. Each week, we take a deep dive on a leadership or a culture topic. You'll hear stories from amazing guests and leaders like you who are committed to leading well. So let's dive in and keep learning on this leadership journey together. Okay, friends, my coaching for you today is to stop promoting your best people. Stop promoting your best people. Here's the problem, and I'm seeing this with a lot of organizations that I'm coaching, is that they're promoting people as a reward for good performance, which I understand, but you're promoting people out of their competence. See, what happens for so many of us, and you've probably been there, you probably were promoted at some time in your journey, in your leadership journey, and you got into a leadership seat and you were like, whoa, this was a lot different than I expected. I hear this from leaders all the time that we're coaching, that they get into a leadership position and they realize there's a lot more to leading people than to leading a project or to being an individual contributor in a specific role in an organization. And so what's happening is that out of a desire to reward people, we promote them into positions that sound great for everybody, right? It sounds like a promotion. It sounds like more opportunity. It is probably more authority in the organization. It's filling a need that you have with somebody that you already know and trust. Everything sounds great about that. And honestly, a lot of times it's good, except for the fact that we're not actually coaching and developing and preparing these leaders for the responsibility that they're about to take on. I remember a season of leadership for me where I had been promoted pretty rapidly, and I now was overseeing like several divisions of the organization. And so I had both, directors reporting to me, and then of course they had their whole downline. So I had a lot of staff like in my downline. And I remember there was one particular day that I was so incredibly frustrated because I didn't get anything done on my to-do list. All I did was field conversations and questions and help other team members make decisions. And I just felt like it was like my door was just constantly swinging, people coming in and out all the time. And I got to the end of the day and I felt really, really frustrated. And it was actually like the whole week was like that. I was really frustrated. I felt like I hadn't gotten anything done, and I am a task person. Like I am somebody who loves to get my to-do list done, loves to feel the accomplishment, this Enneagram 3, loves to feel that sense of accomplishment of everything I was responsible for. And I hadn't done any of it. So I was feeling like I had failed. And then I began to sit and evaluate. And I thought about the conversations that I had, the coaching moments, the decisions, etc. And I realized I had actually done some of my best work, but it was through others. And this is the biggest thing that I see happen to so many leaders who get promoted into people management positions, is that we don't prepare them for that mindset shift, that their mindset has to go from being a doer to being a leader. They have to go from feeling like their job is to get a bunch of tasks accomplished to their job being one where they are working in and through others. They are coaching, they are developing. And it doesn't mean that they probably don't have their own to-do list. Most of you are in organizations that are small enough that everybody also wears an additional hat in addition to their people management responsibilities. But if people managers, if people promoted into those positions of leadership don't recognize the value of working through others, they will flounder and their teams will suffer. And that's what I want to highlight today is how that might be happening in your organization. I was talking to a leader the other day and they've had just significant turnover in their organization. And it's predominantly because they have one people manager who just doesn't love managing people. Just doesn't love managing people. And that's not bad. In fact, one of my deep beliefs is not everybody needs to be promoted. Not everybody needs to be promoted into greater levels of responsibility, of people management responsibility. There's probably other opportunities for promotion or greater responsibility in their area of expertise. The goal for everybody shouldn't be people management and leadership because not everybody likes it. Not everybody's gifted for it. So we have to be really careful in our organizations that we don't unintentionally imply that people management roles are more superior organizationally. We have to be super careful with this. I remember years ago, I was leading a team and I had one individual who's extraordinarily talented, really, really talented, very, very gifted in a very specific area. That team was growing, and the obvious choice would have been to promote that person into leading the team. But I had worked with that individual enough that I knew that that would have moved him out of his greatest strengths. It would have frustrated him. It would have frustrated us because he would have been in a role that he didn't like and wasn't qualified for. And then I would actually have not been getting his best gift in this other thing that he was really competent at. So I needed to hire somebody essentially over that department, which was going to feel like a demotion to this individual. And so I took a significant amount of time talking through my decision, helping this individual understand that his value to the organization was actually greater in the seat where he was contributing his best effort and his best gifts, and that to promote him into leading the department would have actually be of lesser value to the organization and less stewardship of his gifts. I'm not going to lie to you. It took a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of hard conversations, but it was really important that we did that even organizationally to help establish the fact that your best contribution is in your area of best giftedness. And we need to be really, really thoughtful and intentional about not promoting people as a reward and therefore promoting them out of their competence. Make sense? Here's part of why this is so much on my mind. In addition to the conversations that I'm having with leaders, we know from a lot of research that poor managers are the primary reason for employee disengagement. I've been doing a bunch of research on employee disengagement lately. Poor managers, primary reason for their disengagement, and also the primary reason people quit their job. Okay? So if you see turnover in your organization, you need to be tuning into how well are your people managers leading. Your managers, your people managers are key to your culture, right? They sit in a really, really critical place where they have significant influence over the experience your team is having. So they hold a lot of keys to the health of your culture. And so my question for you today is, how much are you investing in the skills that make them successful? How much are you investing in the skills that make your people managers successful? So I've got a couple questions that I want you to consider today. So I'm giving you some questions. I really would love for you to workshop this because I've presented the problem. You're probably seeing yourself somewhere in that picture. Maybe you've been there and you had to really catch up to the people management skills that were necessary for you to stay in that role. I'm not saying that we can't grow and develop into it because we absolutely can, but we need to make sure there's a want to, right? I love that leader that I was talking to earlier this week that they were like, we have a ton of turnover and I'm the problem because I don't actually like managing people. So you know what we're doing? We're now figuring out how do we reorganize, how do we restructure the organization so that we can get that person out of as much people management as he has. I don't think he can eliminate it because he's in senior leadership. How can we mitigate him having to manage so many people, right? So there's ways to think about this, and it's really important for us to be paying attention to it. So I've got 4 questions that I want you to think about today. So first of all, there's actually more, but there are 4 categories of questions. The first one is, I want you to think about who are your best people managers. Actually, who is your best people manager? Most of you don't have like teams of hundreds or thousands. Who is your best people manager and who is your worst people manager? Now, this is just for you. I don't need you to share this. I don't need you to go tell those individuals that they're the best or the worst. I just want you to take a little bit in inventory. This is an assess thing, right? Like in our framework, we talk about we need to assess where we are in order to define where we want to go. So I need you to assess who's your best, who's your worst. What skills does the good manager have? Like you're like, I need more of that. This manager is really good and gifted at these things. They manage their time well, they delegate well, whatever it might be. What are their best skills? And then I want you to look at your poor people manager, the person who's lacking in their people manager skills, and write down what are the skills that they're lacking in? Like, what are the things that you're like, gosh, they really need to be better at this. I really need them to grow in this. So make those lists and then compile it. Just put it together. Write that list down, and it's going to inform your training plan. So what you're doing is you're identifying the things that need to be repeated and the things that need to be improved. That's going to give you a list of manager skills that you want to focus on. Second thing I want you to do is I want you to consider what process do you have in place for equipping people managers before you promote them? What process do you have in place for equipping people managers before you promote them? Guys, this is so critical. And I realize, again, many of you are in smaller organizations. You need to fill that hole. Again, it's a trusted person. They'll figure it out. They always do. I get it. And they probably will figure it out because they always do. But at what cost to the people they're leading, right? At what cost to the people they're leading? Because again, we're going to calculate this in a minute, but there's a true cost to poor people managers. There's a true cost. So what process do you have in place for equipping your managers before you promote them? When I worked in the record business years ago, they had a training that if you were going to be promoted into a role of that required managing others, you had like 6 months that you had to do in the training with the HR department before you could be promoted. Like this was a much bigger organization, so their systems were pretty robust. If they identified you as somebody that they wanted to promote, you had to go through this training before you got the promotion. And you guys, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think it's some of what I learned in that season were so foundational to helping me develop my love for leadership, right? Like my love for leadership and my love for culture was very much birthed in that season. So now you might not need a whole 6-month program, but what training do you have to help equip your people managers, and particularly helping them understand the shift they need to make in what they prioritize? Like their to-do list is no longer the first priority. Their team is their first priority. And so there's a mental shift that has to happen. Leaders have to go from like being that individual contributor to being somebody who's leading others and getting their work done through others. They have to really see value in that. They have to really value leadership above just getting stuff done. So what are you doing, or what process do you have in place for equipping your people managers before you promote them? Number 3, what are you doing on an ongoing basis to train your managers? So that list I had you do in the first question where I ask you who's your worst and who's your best people manager, I had you build that list. Use that list and let it be the outline for your training plan for the year. So you probably wrote down time management, delegation, how to have hard conversations, self-leadership, a bunch of like those kind of skills that you're identifying need to be done. Use that list as an outline for your training plan for the year. And my team and I at Foresight will be happy to help you build out that plan if you need help building out that plan. Part of the reason, one of the things we often get stuck in is we're waiting for being able to eventually hire somebody to be responsible for training and development. I don't know how likely that is for you and your organization or how quickly that's a possibility. And so I want you to be thoughtful about, don't wait until you can hire for it, just start. And there's plenty of resources. The Lead Culture Network has courses in it that can help you with your people managers and training your people managers. So create that list of skills and just start doing it. And then number 4, how are you gauging the effectiveness of your managers? So you also need to know how they're doing. So one key way to do that is an annual survey. You've heard us talk about that. I think it's such a healthy discipline to do an annual survey with your team so you get good feedback of what's happening in the organization. So that's one data point. Are you doing skip level meetings where you are checking in with the people who report to your direct reports? So you're skipping and just checking in. And this doesn't have to be like ugly feeling. It can just be quick check-ins to just get a sense of how they're doing and what's working, what's not. But you need to have conversation avenues with people that report to people who report to you. And then active conversations with your people managers to understand where they feel stuck so you can support them. So are you checking in with your people managers to ask them occasionally, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling about leading your team? What's been surprising? Where do you feel stuck? How can I help? Like just those conversations will help you get insight into how your managers are doing and how you can better equip them. So those are just 4 things that I would love for you to be like just practical steps you can take to begin investing in your people managers, because what you're doing is you're raising your awareness of, gosh, this is a key role. I've got to be investing in my people managers because they are so core to the success of our organization and our ability to achieve our mission. I mentioned earlier that many of you are in organizations that are not huge, maybe less than a couple hundred employees. And so you don't have a robust training plan. That's just not something you have the luxury of. You have a dream of eventually having training and development staff person that can focus on this. And you just kind of cross your fingers and you hope, that day will come and everything will be fixed. But the problem is that lack of leadership training is costing you, right? Like not doing something is costing you dearly. But the problem is the cost is sometimes hidden. So here are a few things. I want to just give you a few ways that you can start counting the cost of poor management and what it might be costing your organization. A couple of things for you to be thinking about. First, how many staff have left your organization this year? Most of us have had some level of turnover. Some of it's natural, but if you just think about how many staff members have left your organization this year, SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, says that it costs about 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary to replace them. So here's a number for you. For a $70,000 annual salary for an employee, it costs you about $35,000 to $52,000 to replace them. So 6 to 9 months. And this is actually a conservative estimate. There are others out there that will say it's more than double or triple, which sometimes they're accounting for the loss of productivity and other team members having to absorb things. Just the functional cost of replacing somebody is usually 6 to 9 months of their salary. So you can make the adjustment. Maybe 70,000 is high or low for your organization, but this gives you an idea of right there. If you, because you invested in your people managers, and we know people leave because of their managers. The data proves it over and over again that one of the primary reasons people leave is because of their managers. If you could save one person from leaving this year because you invested in your managers, you could save yourself a minimum of $35,000 if their annual salary is $70,000. So you can run the numbers, but you get the picture, right? I bet you don't have $35,000 budgeted in your leadership development budget. You probably don't. In fact, maybe you cut it or trimmed it or cut it completely this year because you're being, doing some budget cuts. Spending a little bit of resources on leadership development could save you tens of thousands of dollars. And then here's another factor. Employee disengagement. So we also know that managers are one of the primary reasons employees are disengaged. Gallup's report from this year told us that only 31% of our employees are engaged. So if we go with that number And there's an equation here that I don't have time to explain, but if we go with that number, let me show you what that could look like. If you have 20 employees and the average salary of your employees is $70,000 and only 31% of them are engaged, that's costing you $294,000 in lost productivity. Almost $300,000 in lost productivity, assuming 20 employees at $70,000 average salary, and their average engagement of what Gallup is telling us is that 31% of them are engaged. If you have 50 employees, that jumps to $735,000 you're losing in lost productivity because people are apathetic, they're disengaged, they're phoning it in, they're doing the bare minimum. You're not getting the best out of them because they're not being led well. Or let's say you have 100 employees at $70,000 as an average salary. It's almost $1.5 million in lost productivity. So you guys, investing in your leaders has a massive return on investment, right? If you could improve employee engagement by just half, all of those numbers that I talked about in disengagement would be cut in half. If you kept one employee from leaving your organization, you would save more than half of that employee's salary in the cost to rehire and refill that position. Do you see how quickly these numbers add up, that they're tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of your organization? And now you're telling me you only have like $500 in your leadership development budget? I hope those numbers, I'm not trying to be, I feel like I'm like bossing you all. And I kind of am, because it matters. It's so significant because you guys, the reason why I focus so much on leadership and culture is because these things are critical to accomplishing the mission. Many of you are in ministry organizations, nonprofits, values-based organizations. And so what you do matters. The mission is significant. And this is why I put so much emphasis on what are we doing to equip our leaders and to build cultures where people are thriving, because it's actually costing us in our ability to achieve the mission. So I hope I got you thinking today. If this was helpful, this is the kind of thing that we are digging into in the Lead Culture Network. We just launched the network, and we're in the founding member stage of the network. And this is the kind of thing that we dig deeply into, and we're helping coach you through. We have the full Lead Culture course library where all of our resources in our Lead Culture framework are available to you. We have our Leadership Institute course, which are these people management courses and modules to equip you to lead well. We do monthly live trainings. We do Q&As and hot seats where you can ask your questions, and we are giving you real-time coaching. And then there's a whole network of culture champions who are learning and growing together. And so you need to join as a founding member. You get early access to everything I'm talking about. You get the early pricing discount, and all of that ends at the end of this year, because next year price goes up. And so now is the time to get in as the founding member and join us in these conversations, because your leadership matters, your culture matters, because your mission matters. So keep leading well, check out the network, and I'll see you next week.